50% of people are no longer, strictly speaking, got diabetes. So if they go back to poor eating, it's a bit like alcoholism. You're never completely cured of it, but you're not considered as having diabetes at the time. So okay, obesity and diabetes I think is pretty clear, but there are lots of other conditions. We have a whole plethora of medical conditions now that hardly existed previously. All these autoimmune diseases, with gluten intolerance, Alzheimer's, all these things, they weren't around when I was in medical school. So what's changed? What's changed in the last 50 years? People say, oh, we're not exercising as much. Well, we're actually exercising about the same. Those days, 50 years ago, it was more work-related. Now it's more leisure-related. We don't all do crazy things like run marathons like Avi does, but there's a lot of leisurely exercise. So that hasn't changed much. What has changed is our diets, and particularly 3 things in diets. I mean, we didn't have processed food or ultra-processed food when I was growing up. We went to the greengrocer and got our veggies, and we went to the butcher and got our meat. And went to the milkman came around every morning, with you could hear the clunk of the bottles of milk in the morning, and we didn't have these issues. We didn't have epidemics of obesity and diabetes. So what's changed is this processed food, and processed food, ultra-processed food. Most processed foods consist of a combination of sugar, not great for you, seed oils or vegetable oils as they like to call it, but they're actually seed oils, but vegetable sounds healthier, so they call it vegetable oils. And grains. And the grains that we eat now are very different from the grains that our grandparents used to eat. And they've all been genetically engineered to produce more, but our bodies don't cope very well with them. It's interesting, one of my boys has been living in France for a couple of years, and you look at the French diet and you think, oh my God, those croissants and baguettes and so on, they must be the unhealthiest country in the world. They have the lowest rate of heart attack in Europe, and a number of people I know who have gluten insensitivity go to France and can eat anything they like because their wheat is different. It's old-fashioned wheat. So we're doing a lot of things wrong, and it's usually because they're cheap, they're tasty. I mean, the food industry is very clever. The pharmaceutical industry is clever. The food industry is probably even cleverer. They make all these foods, they crank up the bliss point as they call it. They just make them full of sugar and oils and make them tastier. They're cheap. They market them well, advertise the hell out of them, especially to kids. They're very clever. And they don't give a shit about your health. They pretend they do, as does the pharmaceutical industry. But none of them care about anything but making a profit. The old story, follow the money. So, diet is I think the key to good health. There's lots of other examples. There's epilepsy. We've known for 100 years that low carb, a ketogenic diet can dramatically improve people with epilepsy. And yet, drugs. There's increasing evidence of these chronic diseases like Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, are all dramatically improved by reducing the amount of carbohydrates in your diet. So, I could go on about all these different diseases. But diet, I think, and I'll admit, 15 years ago I had no idea about this. I think diet is the single most important factor in our health. Now, I'm a sport and exercise physician, so I believe in exercise, and I think exercise is really important. But you can't outrun a bad diet. And one of the funny things is people often say to me, "Oh, you've got to run to lose weight." And I think, well, no, it's actually the reverse. You've got to lose weight to run, because once you lose weight, you actually enjoy running a hell of a lot more. It's bloody hard to run when you're running around lagging, 120 kilograms or something like that, So that's what I found. I suddenly enjoyed running because I wasn't, having to lug all this extra kilograms around. So, I think it's just so important that the frustration that we all have, I guess, is that, there's a lot of people out there who don't appreciate, or don't understand. And the two biggest impediments to good health, sadly, are the medical profession and the dietitians. Medical professions, because as I said, we've been bought by big pharma. Everyone's got to be on statins. You know, if they had their choice, they'd put statins in the water. You know, I mean, they keep lowering the threshold. Everyone's got to be on statins, and you know, they're horrible drugs, and they probably don't do an awful lot of good. So the medical profession is a major problem. You know, we have so many instances of someone who you know, goes on a, you know, is obese, or you know, has type 2 diabetes, for instance, goes on a low carb ketogenic diet, reverses their diabetes, loses a whole lot of weight, goes back to their doctor. The doctor says, "Oh wow, you know, that's fantastic. You know, it's really good." And they say to the doctor, "Do you want to know how I did it?" "Oh no, I don't want to know." You know, it's just too threatening. Too threatening for them. It threatens their whole sort of paradigm. And we stay, as doctors, we stay in our comfort zone. You know, and our comfort zone is drugs and surgery. Doctors know nothing about nutrition. I didn't have a single lecture on nutrition in my medical course. Now that was, you know, last century, but you know, I don't think it's changed much. They know nothing about exercise, prescribing exercise. They don't know much about stress management, all the important things. They just know about drugs and surgery. So the medical profession is a massive disappointment. Some of the younger ones coming through now are getting it, but you know, medicine progresses one funeral at a time. You know, we've got to wait for the senior people to move on. And then the dietitians are the other problem. You know, again, it's the senior members of the dietitian's profession that are very you know, set in their ways. And I get it. You know, you've been preaching something for 30 or 40 years, and some wacko sports medicine guy gets up and says, you know, you're wrong. I mean, of course they're going to react and so on. So, you know, I understand that, but you know, you've got to be open to new ideas. And when the science is there, when the evidence is there, and when your patients are telling you, it must be so frustrating being a dietitian and prescribing a low-fat diet and no one ever losing weight or getting any better. I mean, I don't know how they do it, to be honest. And yet the dietitians I speak to who practice low carb find it so rewarding and so enjoyable that they're getting such great results. So sadly, you know, doctors and dietitians, I think, you know, they have to sign in blood when they graduate. You know, thou shalt vilify saturated fat for the rest of your life. You know, I mean, and yet, you know, the evidence is not there. It never has been there. So it's incredibly frustrating, you know. But we've got to keep at it. Fortunately, there are good people around like John and Avi and others who are preaching the you know, the good word. I think it's up to all of us. You know, it's not just me or it's Avi or anyone who's up speaking. I mean, you all have friends, you all have family, you all have people you can influence. And you know, if everyone in this room goes out and influence one person to improve their diet and improve their health, and then they influence one person, and then it's got to be a ground up movement. It's never going to come from the top. It's got to be a ground up movement. We've got to take over and teach the doctors and teach the dietitians. We've got to get our family and our friends and so on to believe in it. So I think I've probably talked for more than long enough. Thank you again for the invitation and the opportunity. Happy to answer any questions an hour later or whatever the boss says. You know, just remember that, you know, we're all advocates, and you know, it's just so important that we get the word out there, that we tell our friends and family, and every opportunity, you know, that we get, you know, and you know, I think if we do that, it'll take a while. There's a lot of parallels between this and the smoking situation, you know, and it took 30 years from when we realised that smoking was damaging to convincing governments and everyone to do something about it. And it'll probably take 30 years to change the diet thing. But we've got to keep at it, keep producing the evidence. We'll try to keep doing our research and putting more and more evidence in front of people, and you know, having what influence we have. I've got the Governor General coming to lunch on Monday, and she's interested in what we're doing, and I'm going to hammer her. And you know, every opportunity. I had Avi and I met a member of Parliament last week at a ribbon cutting ceremony. And again, you know, poor guy finished up with a copy of my book, and you know, he got ambushed. But and he was very interested in something. He told us one funny thing. He reckons half the MPs are on Ozempic, and of course they're vain. But they probably get freebies from the pharmaceutical industry. Who knows? But the sad thing is that they could have the same effect without any of the side effects by going on a low carb diet. But that's not sexy, and no one's making any money out of it, unfortunately. Anyway, Inez, I think I've set it up. Thank you.
Great question.